Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is the webinar that we were going to present last week until the Hurricane Milton shut down all the electricity in Florida, and our presenter, Rod Sigman, was not able to do it. So we're doing it today, and we have a little smaller audience because of that, but I'm sure a lot of people will be watching it later on our YouTube channel. Today's webinar is titled Care and Maintenance Top 10, How to Profit from Avoiding Common Pitfalls. I'm Jim Olson with the National Tile Contractors Association. I want to welcome you and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend today's webinar sponsored by Mapei. Before I introduce today's speaker, I want to remind you that during the webinar you'll be muted. Please use the questions area on your computer to type in any question you may have, and we'll answer those questions at the end of this presentation. If the audio on your computer is poor, please call the number on the invite to this webinar and listen on your phone. All NTCA webinars are available to watch at any time on the NTCA YouTube channel shortly after the webinars are presented. This will give you easy access to watch and/or share all current and past programs at your convenience. All right, I'm really happy to present today's speaker. I know him, I think of him as a friend, and look forward to this presentation. So today's presenter is Rod Sigman. He's currently the UltraCare Business Development Manager for Mapei. Mr. Sigman has worked in the tile and stone industry, specializing in care and maintenance for the past 34 years. Over this time, some of his roles have included product formulator, quality control, technical service manager, educator, trainer, and job site specialist. He also has a background in surface prep for all flooring types. Mr. Sigman is responsible for product line management, education, working with R&D to develop and implement new and/or improved products, implementation of marketing support programs and materials, and supporting the needs and the objectives of the sales department pertaining to architectural, national accounts, distribution, and contractors. He's also responsible for national support of job site inspections, product specifications, and demonstrations. Rod sits on the NTCA and the NSI technical committees. He graduated the ceramic tile consultant course in 1995. He's also part of the certified ceramic tile salesperson program. Many things. I can go on and on. I just want to thank Rod for being here, and want everyone to know if you come to coverings or surfaces, Rod will probably be there speaking on stage. So Rod, welcome. Look forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all being here today to talk about this topic here, which again is near and dear to my heart. As Jim said, I've been around 34 going on 35 years now in the industry, as he said, primarily specializing in this topic here, which is care and maintenance products. So again, thank you for everybody taking the time, and at the end we'll have some questions and answers here to cover. But as we talk about this, when we're going into the topic of, how to profit from avoiding common pitfalls, one of the things I always point out at the beginning like this is that 34, 35 years later, unfortunately, there are no standards, right? Whether it's ISO, International Standards Organization, or ANSI, or different ASTM test methods, things that those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, correlate with crack isolation and waterproofing and grouts and distinguishing different types of performance characteristics of mortars and sound attenuation. And again, you go on and on and on. And at the end of the day, this is really, I think, probably the only area in the industry that we really have no standard to say, well, what is a high performance sealer versus an economical, and what distinguishes this product from another, and how do we test for that, and all the things that we're normally used to in these other product lines and product categories just don't exist here. So like I said here, fortunately or unfortunately, there are no tile or stone police, right? So just like this, it's a real picture of a customer deciding whether she's going to pay somebody for the work that was done. That's not just a kind of funny picture. That was actually a real job site. And that's kind of the standard by which she determined, am I going to pay you? So It would be nice to have other criteria than a magnifying glass and somebody's subjectivity is the point. So having said that, until that day comes, the best thing we can do is be educated on this topic and what the options are for us and or our customers, depending on who you are in the industry. And making the right choice first always sets you up for make the winning shot, right? So the analogy I use here is, again, it's just like anything. If you're an installer, understanding, what products you need, what the standards are, or how to waterproof, and let's say, not just a shower, but what if it's a steam shower? Well, that's a different animal. That requires maybe different products or methods and tools or things of that nature. It's the same thing here. The more we understand about this topic, the better you're going to be, just like in golfing. I mean, if you only know how to use the putter and driver, well, that you can play golf, but you're probably not going to win very often, and you're not definitely going to be the best golfer. So if we understand the role of sealers, what type of sealer, when to use it, how much to use, what the method of applications are, the benefits and features are, and limitations as well. Again, whether that's an interior, an exterior project, a residential versus commercial, a floor versus a wall, a kitchen versus a shower, again, whatever it is, there's different criteria to consider. And I would say here, like at the beginning, not all stone or grout needs to be sealed. That might sound funny from a guy that does this type of work, but like I say here, do you know what ones do? I'm not going to tell you I know every single material out there, and especially stone wise, it needs to be sealed, but we can test for it if we know where it's going and what it's exposed to. Again, these are all factors we have to look at. Do we know when to use an acid versus an alkaline or a solvent? We'll talk about that today. The difference in latex leaching versus efflorescence and grout wash water in different scenarios. Again, when we're trying to problem solve, these are all things that if we understand these issues, or even if we don't, do you know who to call? Do you know who to involve? Do you know who to get free and expert advice from? And that's really the issue. Again, I certainly don't know everything, and I don't know anybody who does, but I know a lot about stone, but I know plenty of people that know more than me. And when I need them, I know who to call. I know plenty of consultants that provide a lot of great forensic analysis of different situations. I know a lot of installers. I'm not an installer. I've never been an installer. I've done my share of installation, but I don't consider myself an installer, but I know a lot of fantastic installers. So do you know who to network with? Do you know who to call? That's really the key. You don't have to know everything. But I would submit to you that the more you know, the better off you're going to be, the more successful you're going to be at your job. So let's start with the top 10. Let's jump into this here. So starting off with number 10, not using a pre-grout treatment. So this is one of those issues that when you get into it, have we done a test? Have we done a mock-up? Do we know? Are we familiar with this material? And if we're not, again, I would tell you the time to figure it out isn't here, like in the picture on the right, when you're going, wow, who knew the black grout was going to stain white marble? Well, again, if you're not familiar with, that's going to be a problem. This isn't the time to figure out. We should have pre-sealed the stone or used a grout release. So again, testing, doing a mock-up is key. But if we're going to do it, what I would always say here, especially for highly porous stone or when a contrasting color is used, seal it before you set it. That's not the only way to do it. It's not the most common way, but it's never going to be drier. It's never going to accept the sealer better, more uniformly without a bunch of moisture related issues. It's always going to be best, like the picture on the left there with the slate flagstone. He's using a color enhancing sealer there in that product. It's being sealed before it's actually dry laid. That's actually not installed. That's just dry laid on that job, and he's using the color enhancing seal to pre-seal it before he sets it and grouts it there. So that's the best way to do it. It's not the only way. It's not always possible, but if and when you can, I would submit to you that's the best way to do it. And again, here, because what happens? Well, when we get to these kind of scenarios here going, well, what is all this picture framing? Well, picture on the left is slate. That was a 2,500 square foot residential job. that they had used a color enhancer. And so what's going on here? Well, they didn't pre-seal it with anything. They mixed the grout too wet because, again, slate, especially without a grout release or a pre-sealer, is going to be a problem to grout. So they mixed the grout really soupy and watery. And when they installed the grout, the water wicked into the sides of the stone, which is not a problem. The problem is what it pulls with it out of the grout. Most of our grouts today are polymer modified. It pulls the polymer with it into the stone, thereby sealing the edges of the stone. So that when they went back with the color enhancing sealer to enhance it, it worked where it could absorb into the stone. And that's what you're seeing. Why is the edge of the stone light? Because in essence, that polymer from the grout that wicked in sealed the edges. You're not going to fix that. That isn't a matter of just using a solvent-based stripper. That was a rip out and replace 2,500 square feet of slate. Not just the expense, but again, the finger pointing, the time, the reputation damage. There's a lot of those things. Again, that's when we talk about how to profit from avoiding common mistakes. This isn't the time to figure out, wow, that I wish I knew that before, right? And that's why I appreciate you all being on the call today, because this is never going to cost you, to sit here and get free education, to learn something hopefully maybe that you didn't know before. It's only going to help you to say, wow, I didn't know that. So that's hopefully what we're trying to provide to you today, is at least 1, 2, 3 or more tips that you may not have known or may not have understood fully. So that's why we appreciate the NTCA putting this type of webinar on today. So again, we're here to help, because the more successful our industry is, the more that we all win. So that's the idea, right? Is to make the pie bigger. We all get our piece of it. Picture on the right is what happens again with just moisture wicking into the stone, and in some cases that'll dry, other cases it doesn't dry, and it becomes a problem. Even when it does dry, it'll take probably 4 to 6 weeks minimum to dry. Customer's unhappy, you're not getting paid, fingers are pointing, again, a lot of waste of time and money discussing what happened and whose fault it is and whatnot. So again, this could have easily, both of these would have been prevented. That if you are going to pre-seal it, like in these cases here, they should have been done. Use the same sealer. So if it's a color enhancing sealer, use that product all the way through. If it's a natural look water-based sealer, use that product to pre-seal it, and then after grouting. Solvent-based, same thing. Whoever's product it is, use the same sealer all the way through. If you cut corners for cost, some guys say, well, I'll use a sealer, but I'll use the cheap sealer to pre-seal, and then I'll use the good stuff after. The problem is it works the opposite. The first sealer that goes on your stone or tile or masonry seals it with that look and that level of protection. So if you use the cheap stuff first, most of it is sealed with the cheap stuff, sprinkled with a little bit of good. So it doesn't work the other way, where the last coat is the most important. The first coat is the most important. So again, hopefully a good tip for some of you there today, because that often does come up. Can I cut corner for cost? In some cases you can, but in this case I would not recommend it. Now here, this is tile. In this case, this is not a matter of porosity. This is a matter of texture. Okay, and so the picture on the right is the magnified texture of the picture on the left. It's like almost like Velcro. And so no matter how good you may be as a contractor, you're not going to overcome this challenge without using some treatment. So that is just a matter of using what we call a grout release, which was a temporary film forming product that can be rolled on, sponged on, and applied before grouting, generally 20, 30 minutes before. Let it dry completely and then grout. And again, a test area is always good. Doing some test tiles is a very easy way to figure out if it'll work and whether the product you're thinking of using works, or whether you need 1 or 2 coats. All of those things apply. But using, in this case, like I said, this is not porosity, so we're not pre-sealing here with a sealer. This is using a grout release, again, like I said, which is a temporary film forming product that is removed with water. It's re-emulsified, if you will, with water during the grout cleanup process. So again, in this case, the picture on the left was able to fix it. You can kind of see the cleaner tiles with an acid wash. But like I said, are you making money if you go back here and acid wash it? You have to buy the acid. You have to spend the time and have the guys go and clean this up here. it would have been cheaper and easier and more profitable to have bought a grout release, done it up front, which would have made the grouting job quicker, easier, and again, more profitable actually for the installer to have done that up front, especially then going back like this and go, well, I bought the acid wash, well, you're losing money at that point, right? So can it be fixed? In this case, yes, but you've lost money, and that's the whole point of this. That's not profitable. We're throwing money away and probably again, possibly harming our reputation with the GC or the owner or whoever it might be involved in this type of project, right? So again, easily avoidable, but this is a matter of what we're talking about today. The grout release, like I said, is a temporary film forming product, like you see in the graphic on the left there. It adjusts and compensates for the texture, providing that. So like you can see here in the picture, when you're grouting, it doesn't always work this way. In some cases it does, where you can literally pull that grout across on a smoother tile even, and it just makes the float move easier across the tile, which is great if you're the guy grouting. It's quicker, so you don't have to push and manipulate that grout as hard. And the cleanup is so much easier. So, and that's what we want, right? Time is money, speed and ease of installation is going to make us profitable and make it, again, more successful. So that's what we're suggesting here. Grout release for some of these jobs is the perfect answer. Number 9, applying a sealer to hot or cold surfaces. I just did this, in fact, on a job 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles on an exterior Saltillo job where I was able to have my temp gun out there, my moisture meter, and was able to document and show the contractor that areas that were good and areas that weren't good, both in temperature and moisture content. So again, these are 2 things that we look at, but as far as temperature goes, again, in the shade on that job in Los Angeles, it was a nice day out there 2 weeks ago. It was a little warm, but it was nice. But the surface temperature was about, mid 80s. Which is fine, not a problem to apply the sealer at that point. But in the areas of the sun, it was 137 degrees, close to what you're seeing in this temperature. Now that's a piece of slate I was shooting there, just as an example, 140, but on the job 2 weeks ago, it was 137 degrees. If you put anybody's sealer, water-based or solvent-based, on 137 degree surface, you're gonna have a problem like what you see in the picture. What's all this hazing? What is going on here? Well, you're flash drying the sealer. Now we have a problem. Not only are we not really sealing it well, but now we got to get a product to use to remove it, which we can. But again, this is all time, money, and energy and effort that is wasted. And again, a lot of just, again, unfortunate, unnecessary actions being done here and money being wasted on trying to figure out what to do. So $30, $40 temp gun is very easy to deal with this here. Now, again, it could be hot, but also the opposite. Now we're going into fall, winter, in some of the areas where some of you are there. I talked to one of my colleagues in Louisville, Kentucky today, and it was, mid 30s out this morning. If somebody's out trying to seal the job at 8 o'clock this morning in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's 35, 36 degrees, that's a problem for a lot of sealers. It's too cold, because if that's the air temperature, how cold is the surface? And by the way, when we talk about temperature, it's 3 things, not 1. It isn't just the air temperature. That's important. It's surface temperature, which is more important, but it's also product temperature. If that product's been sitting in the back of a pickup truck or sitting out in the sun or sitting out in the freezing air in Louisville, or almost freezing this morning, that can influence how these products work. And that doesn't matter if it's grouts, mortars, waterproofing. It can also be sealers and different things like that. So air, surface, product temperature, 3 things to consider when we're talking about this. But if we keep it in the suitable product range, which is 50 to 80, sometimes it's 40 to 90. Again, that's not just air temperature. It can be surface, air, and product temperature. 3 things to look at. Moisture, number 8, as I mentioned here and alluded to, the same but different. When you look at a lot of materials, and I did this at surfaces and coverings this year, if anybody happened to see me do this, I'll pull out a piece of slate, I'll soak it a week before, and then let it dry, package it up, take it with me to the trade show, take it out, looks dry, feels completely dry. And I ask everybody, are we good to go? It's like, yeah, looks like we're good to seal it. Then I take my moisture meter, like you see here, the Tramex, the electric impedance meter, put it on there, and it pegs the meter. And it's like, well, we're not good to go. So how do we know that? Well, if you're doing this kind of work, I'd submit to you, like the contractor 2 weeks ago, first thing he did when I was done with the job, he went on and bought one of these meters, which is, again, if you're in the business, just like installing, you got to have grouts, trowels, floats, tools, again, things that are necessary. You got to have a tile saw. I mean, there's things you need to be an installer. If you're going to do this kind of work, there's not a lot you need, but I would submit that a temperature gun and I would submit that a moisture meter are two things you should have if you're doing this kind of work, because they will save you from these kind of problems when you're saying, well, I don't know why the sealer's failing. I don't know why the picture on the right looks so blotchy with the color enhancer. Well, it's because it's too wet. The enhancer only absorbs where it can absorb into the stone, and now we've got this blotchy mess on our hands. What are you going to do with it? That's not going to be fixable real easy anytime soon. Now we're in a very unfortunate situation, and you're definitely not getting paid. So these are things, again, we want to figure out, talk about beforehand, not when it gets to this stage. That's why we're talking about it here today. So mainly exterior. Interior can be definitely helpful as well. I mean, it can be for sure. Exterior, I would tell you, is much more critical, but I would say they're both important, but exterior being the much more critical issue. And again, knowing the material, knowing what type of sealer, and it's all about having the conversations, guys. It's all about having the conversation up front, calling technical services, calling the manufacturer. Again, networking with your resources to say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Give me some tip, tricks, and ideas. Give me some corners. If I can cut corners, great. If I can, have some time-saving tips, give it to me. But what do I need to know so I don't end up in a situation like this? These are conversations all of us would love to have up front, not when they happen like this. So what can we do? Well, again, like I said, applying it before you install it, like this on this commercial job here. This job's being laid out and sealed before it's even shipped to the job site. Fantastic. Again, can it always be done this way? No, but I'll tell you what, anytime I've ever seen it done like this in 34 or 35 years, I can't think of a problem I've ever gotten a call on where it's been done like this. So again, if we're talking about, well, hey, Rod, save me time, save me money, make my job easier, make me more profitable. As an installer, I can tell you that all day long. It may not be the easiest answer. It may not be the most practical answer, but I'm telling you, I've never had an issue and seen an issue in 34, 35 years where it's been done this way and they go, hey, this didn't work or this is a problem. I can tell you and show you plenty of pictures like on the right there where that isn't even sealed. So what are we looking at? That's a limestone job. If you noticed, it's not even grouted, right? What's happening there is the owner put down the stone and goes, what is that? This is the stone I paid for. What is this? And then, the installer's left to have a conversation going, I don't know. What are we doing? Or, hey, that's moisture. Well, when is that going to dry out? The answer is not anytime soon. It could be a month, could be 2 months or more. And we still have to grout it. So this is one of those, again, it's like, well, okay, great. When it goes back to the natural stone, then the color, then we can seal it. Then I'll pay you. Again, these are not conversations that anybody wants to have or should have to have. And again, if you're a distributor, I would also submit, again, a lot of what I'm talking about, of course, is more directed to installers. But if you're a distributor or a dealer, or even an architect, a spec writer, whoever you might be today, a designer on the call today, or listening to this at a later time, these are all things that we want to talk about up front and consider, because had this been pre-sealed on the picture on the right with the limestone, you wouldn't be dealing with that issue. Moisture would still be there, but we wouldn't be dealing with that color issue. It just would be slowly letting the moisture vapor transmit through the stone. Again, moisture as a vapor rather than the direct liquid through and changing the color like that. So again, there are options and ways that could have been avoided, but now it's a very ugly, unfortunate conversation. So again, we want to avoid those. Reading directions is no longer a felony. That's kind of cool. That's a good thing to know. So kind of a joke, obviously, but not. I mean, I like the pictures on the right for funny, but those are real pictures where you're going, we kind of missed it here. I don't know how to interpret some of these. Do not enter and enter only. I don't know. That's kind of weird. No right turn. Right turn must turn. A right lane must turn right. I don't know. Kind of weird. Like, how do we interpret this? It's kind of what happens in these calls that I get, or the jobs I see, or things that I've run across is again going, what do we do here? Well, again, if we follow directions, if we do it right up front, if we have the conversations, and again, like I said here, directions are there for a reason. I don't like to read any more than anybody else does, honestly. Most of us are visual learners, but there are great videos on YouTube, on the manufacturer's websites. I like that because, again, like I said, I don't like to read either, but I like to, but if I see it visually, I can do that. It's a lot easier to me. So there's plenty of options and opportunities to do it right up front. So again, let's work together to avoid issues like this. Picture on the left is a Colorado flagged sandstone. And so what I like about that is the left side is untreated. The middle section is treated properly, meaning the color enhancer, which is a penetrating sealer, darkens it, but it shouldn't be shiny. The right side is all shiny. That's what happens when you don't read instructions. And that leads to the picture on the right, which is, what is that? Well, that's a basalt there that they applied color enhancer to, and then ended up taking a shaver and shaving the enhancer residue off of the floor with a shaver. Yeah, that's one way to do it. It can be fixed. I wouldn't want to be that person. Again, these things can be fixed, but at what cost? How much of your profit do you have, or do you have left once you've done this? And again, how much confidence does the owner or the owner's representative have in you at this point that we hired the right person, right? So these are all things, like I said, it's not hard to do. The application is not hard to do. Put it on, let it sit 5-10 minutes generally, and wipe it completely dry, not kind of dry, completely dry. And when your towels get wet, you can't wipe something dry with a wet towel. That sounds very obvious, but I can't tell you how many of these jobs I'm showing you can be actually directly attributed to that. Like, one towel doesn't go 500 square feet. When it's wet, just like a paper towel, get rid of it, get a new towel, wipe it completely dry with a dry towel. So when you do that, again, it's so much more profitable. It's so much easier. It goes right the first time. Everybody gets paid, everybody's happy, and we're off to the next job, right? So stuff is not hard to do, but we just have to follow, just like I said here. Microfiber towels are the best way to go. There's just, again, a couple more pictures of sealer residue at a car dealership. Sealer residue on the exterior of a stone wall. Were they fixed? Yes, they were fixed. Again, at what cost and at what damage, and to the reputation, and how much profit did they make? I mean, again, these are all, like I said, the same story. I hate showing these, but the reason I'm showing these is because 34, 35 years later, I'm still getting many of the same calls. So if I'm still getting the calls, the emails, the text messages, all the pictures, and the unfortunate stories and situations, it tells me we still have education to do. It tells me that we're still, as an industry, we're still missing this. So again, my job, I feel, to the industry is to educate and give people the right opportunities and information to be profitable and successful the first time. So it is easy to do. These are not hard to avoid. But since they do happen, again, things like this, number 7, reading direction along the valley, same thing. Again, when we put the tile down, the attic stock, and say, are we there yet? Again, to remove haze and construction debris and all this. I mean, again, there are things that we should have done to protect this floor and avoid this kind of stuff. It can be fixed, it can be cleaned, but are we using the right product, the right dilution? Again, the right equipment, because again, in this case, I would tell you PPE is very important, and that's not, in this case, not personal protective equipment. PPE in this world is process, product, and equipment. Okay, so again, it's not only having the right product, using the right product, it's having the right procedure or process. And then thirdly, it's having the right equipment, whether you're sealing, cleaning, or problem solving, commercially, residentially, inside, outside, doesn't matter, floors, walls, any of those scenarios, it's all the same thing. We have to have the right product, process and procedure, and equipment, PPE. So again, when we do that, it's critical. And again, and like I say here, the last bullet has the customer bought off or signed off before we proceed. Again, it's important that we all be on the same page. And again, just because we may think this is acceptable or this is good, before we start doing an entire job, whether it's sealing or problem solving like this or cleaning, let's have the owner come in, let's put down the tile, let's say, are we there yet? Or do we have all three of these dialed in properly? So number 6, sealers are not miracle fix-alls. Like this job here, this limestone job in Texas, sealing's great, but when you have tannic acid decaying these acorns on limestone, again, sealing can help, but it's not going to solve the problem here. We need to address this separate of a sealer. White marble with inherent free ferrous or soluble iron inherent within the stone, that's a whole other conversation. Can be addressed in many cases, not all, by 6-sided sealing or multi-sided sealing. Etching on polished marble, again, because the sealers reside in the stone, not on the stone, etching can still be an issue. So these are all things we want to talk about and consider up front. Job on the left is a job, exterior job. It was around a swimming pool, it's around the seat walls, it's around all kinds of wet areas with sprinklers. And so this stone had, again, soluble iron in it. And well, hey, sealing's going to stop that. And they were told, no, please don't do that. Sealers are never going to change the natural characteristic of the stone. In this case, they found out the hard way that was the case. So again, there's things that we need to talk about up front. Is this the right material? Can we bridge the gap between expectation and reality? Maybe, maybe not. Picture on the right, freeze thaw. Hey, don't sealers, can't they change again the characteristic to make this freeze thaw sensitive stone freeze thaw stable? The answer is no. These people found out, unfortunately, the hard way the first winter on that job. So again, unfortunate, but this is what happens when we just assume things, can be easily avoided. They can be, but again, only with the right information, with the right instructions, with the right products, process, and equipment, right? I like the picture there, overconfidence. Before you attempt to beat the odds, be sure you can survive the odds beating you. And it's kind of a funny picture, but honestly, that is so true. It is just in 34, 35 years, that is the case where you're trying to outrun reality going, well, I hope this works. And it's, man, there's a better plan. There's a better game plan than the blame game, right? Number 5, not talking about maintenance. This is very simple. Again, whether it's stone, tile, floors, walls, showers, kitchens. The number one killer, by the way, of a sealer, and saying, well, how long do sealers last? Could be every 6 months, a year, could be 6 years, 10 years, 15 years or more. That's all possible. But you don't have to reseal every year. But if you're not going to use the right maintenance products, we're probably going to have a problem where you can take the word years off, and instead of up to 5 years, you might say up to 5 months. When we use bleach, vinegar, and scrubbing bubbles, and Tilex, and Fantastic 409, Fabuloso, and whatever janitorial products that do this kind of damage here. So whether it's natural stone on the left, trying to remove grout haze, or trying to clean the grout on engineered stone tile floor on the right. And unfortunately, yes, hydrofluoric acid, it's great to clean the grout, but it's actually going to literally destroy your engineered stone or your quartz tile. Lessons that should have been avoided up front. Again, these are things where, again, you're probably not going to get any repeat business. You're probably going to lose any profit you made on the job by the time it's done. So again, stuff like this, we have to look at what type of material, shopping malls and restaurants and stone and tile. But these are all things that can easily be cleaned and maintained properly, like I said, with the right product, process, and equipment. Number 4, not knowing the right product to problem solve. again, so let's talk about that very quickly. Alkalines, acids, solvents. Alkaline cleaners do three key things: degrease and remove oils, break down oils. They heavy duty cleaning, like we see on the brick job there on the left or on the picture on the right with the granite. Stripping waxes and finishes. Notice I didn't say sealers, I said waxes and finishes. These are the three primary things that alkaline cleaners do. Very simple. This is Chemistry 101 made simple. So, okay, so that's easy enough. What do acids do? Well, acids remove and attack anything mineral-based. What are those? Rust, efflorescence, cement grout haze. Notice I didn't say epoxy or pre-mixed grouts. We're talking cement. Cement is a mineral, Portland cement. Hard water and mineral buildup. Those four things primarily are what we would want to sell or use or recommend to problem solve. Okay, so if it's a mineral-based problem, we use an acid. Well, okay, that's easy. What about solvents? Solvent strippers or cleaners. So if we have dyes, inks, sealers, again in this case, glues and adhesives, or again in this case, epoxy or the resinous or pre-mixed grout haze, that's where we want to use a solvent stripper or cleaner. So those are three areas. So if we know what the problem is, we put it in one of those three categories, and that is our Chemistry 101 made simple. Okay, so if we know what the problem is, we drop it into one of these three silos and we find the right type of product, and then we use the right product from what the manufacturers offer you. Number three, misdiagnosing efflorescence, as I said earlier in the very beginning. So only one of these is actually efflorescence. It's not the picture on the left, although that would constantly be misdiagnosed as efflorescence. That is grout wash water residue. That's what happens where even though we get it off the tile, we leave grout wash water residue, because if you looked at the bucket of water when it was grouted, it was probably still gray, and we end up leaving, in essence, a grout haze on the grout. So again, not the end of the world, but technically that is not efflorescence. That's just wash water. It's grout haze on the grout. It can be acid washed and removed. Picture in the middle. That looks like efflorescence. It is not. How do we know that? Well, when you take that residue and you press it between your index finger and your thumb, what you would find out very quickly is it's sticky or tacky. It's gummy. That is latex leaching. Another way you can determine that is take that residue, put it in a cup of vinegar. And what you will see, like I did here, was it just floats around. Because why? Again, latex is not mineral. Remember what we just said, acids only attack minerals. Then again, this just floats in there. So those two ways are the way I diagnose in the field very quickly and easily, very inexpensive, very quickly, like I said, whether it's latex leaching or efflorescence. Picture on the far right, on the green serpentine, green marble, that is efflorescence. How do I know that? Because when I press that between my index finger and thumb, it's like baby powder, talc powder. When I take that residue and I put it in vinegar, it fizzes and bubbles. Again, why? Because efflorescence, like we just said, is a salt, it's a mineral, it will chemically react. So again, mainly between latex leaching and efflorescence, I see a lot more latex leaching these days than I ever have because of the type of products being used and sold. So again, key to distinguish that. So again, we just want to know and look at this here and find out, because a lot of stones inherently have efflorescence or soluble salts in them, and you'll see this in these pictures here with different materials, from a backsplash to just an uninstalled piece of stone here, basalt. It's already efflorescing. So again, these are things we want to look at and try to diagnose before we even install them in many cases. Talk to the manufacturer as well. Number two, not knowing if a stone should be sealed. Well, the time to figure it out like this isn't when we install the countertop and have a bunch of grease staining or here on this limestone floor in a hotel where we're literally, they're poulticing this, what I call a poultice minefield, I guess. That's probably not going to be very practical. That's not the time to figure it out. We could easily have tested for this up front and figured it out. So again, with whatever likely contaminants, coffee, oil, whatever it's going to be exposed to, that can be very quickly and easily diagnosed beforehand, right? Not, like I said, not every stone needs to be sealed. But look, in the picture on the top left, that's off a cruise ship. That was a white marble. That used to be a white marble. So what's pink? Well, that was from a disinfectant cleaner that they were using on the cruise ship on this unsealed white marble, and the white Carrara became Rosa Carrara very quickly. And so now we have pink marble on the cruise ship. That was a rip out and replace. I don't know, it was like 40,000 square feet of marble, brand new. So that was a multi-million-dollar insurance claim and lawsuit. So anyways, that again, not something that anybody here wants to be involved with, but that was the reality of it. So, and I like that picture because I always ask people, how far did the pink dye penetrate the stone? And if you can tell there, it's all the way. So by the way, if a water-based disinfectant penetrating or a product can penetrate the entire depth of stone, by the way, so can a water-based sealer. Just a FYI. For some people that say, water-based sealers don't work on, it won't penetrate something dense like marble or granite. Well, it's funny, a water-based cleaner can, so can a water-based sealer very easily. So again, these are all things, mock-ups, testing, that can easily be done up front and should be. Number one, not knowing why or what a sealer will do. There are no such thing as a waterproof or stain-proof sealer. They're not meant to waterproof or stain-proof. There are some clever marketing products and marketing things that are done in some cases, but I've never seen a sealer I couldn't stain. I've never seen a sealer that lasts forever. Just like carpet, these are water resistant, stain repellent products. They're not meant to spill anything and leave on there for any amount of time and they just clean themselves. They just don't. But if you don't seal, this is what happens, right? I mean, these are actual jobs or things. I just took my finger with water and wrote the word stain. If I can do that, I'm pretty sure I could seal it. But these are all things, again, I showed just to say, again, this is not the time to figure it out on the job. We can easily do it up front. And we talk about what a sealer will not do. I said a little while ago, that again, sealers, the picture on the left is, even though that was sealed, it's etched from toothpaste and other cosmetics in the bathroom, which a lot of people aren't aware of, but they do. And so they said, well, I sealed it. What happened? Well, again, remember, the sealer resides in the stone, not on the stone. So if you have an acid-sensitive stone, the sealer can minimize the degree of etching, but it will not stop it. Now, picture on the right is restored and refinished. It can be done, but again, this is important to understand. But if somebody would have read the label, they would have figured out under the limitation section that was called out very directly and very obviously on the label. So that's why we say read. Again, picture framing, I've mentioned before, grout staining of different stone or tile. These are all things we need to understand up front that all play a factor into, do we need to seal? If this was done in a mock-up, these two pictures here wouldn't have even existed. They would have figured it out up front before it was ever installed. So again, things that are very simple to avoid. These don't have to happen. They shouldn't ever happen. And hopefully with any of your jobs, they never do happen. And again, so there's key information to be aware of. So a sealer can provide also the aesthetics the customer wants. So it may not always be for stain resistance or water resistance. It might just be aesthetically like this. On the right side, you see the same stone color enhanced around the deck. Again, the color enhancer is a penetrating sealer. That's not a topical. We definitely don't want to put a topical sealer around the swimming pool. That would be a problem. But again, sometimes it's just for the aesthetics, to pop the color, going, hey, I like the look of it. It's good to know that it's a sealer. It's good to know I've got stain protection, but I just kind of like the aesthetic. So that's also knowing what a sealer can and can't do or may not do. So sometimes it might just be to provide a certain look. So that's also an option. And the bottom line here, wrapping it up, guys, let's create more showcases, not case studies. That's really the idea here. Is I hate showing the failures and some of the unfortunate things, but it's always a learning lesson for me and I think for the industry. And I appreciate, like I said, you guys taking the time today to be on this. Hopefully you picked up a few things there today. And but that was the goal of today, is, like I said, is, just simply to reduce the amount of complaints and problems in the industry and make sure that the job is done once, it's done right, to everybody's satisfaction, everybody gets paid, and no problems or issues. There's plenty of those jobs that happen every day, but still 34, 35 years later, there's still way too many of the same issues out there, which is why I try to focus on this, because it tells me there's still some discussion and education that we need to do. So hopefully you found a few things helpful to you today. But with that, I'm going to wrap it up, turn it back to Jim for some question and answers. Guys, thank you so much.
Rod, great job. Thank you. Attendees, please note, it's always, I know Rod's available to answer questions. His service is greatly appreciated, and he has a phone number and he has his email address on there. Please jot that down for future. Rod, I'm gonna say we got one question, and it wasn't even a question, it just was great presentation. Thank you, Rod. So again,
Well, that's easy to answer. Thank you.
yeah, a fabulous job. And I have to say, it's too bad that you know, Hurricane Milton and Helene came through Florida and created the disaster and problems that you're having there. And sorry we couldn't do this last Thursday. And we will make sure this gets out to everybody that could not attend today that was signed up. We had 162 people sign up for this presentation. So Rod, thank you. We will talk soon, everybody. We have an invite that's coming out November 7th is our next webinar, and I hope to see some of you at TSP. Other than that, thank you. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to all of you soon. Thanks, you, Rod.
Jim. Thank you, NTCA. Appreciate everybody today. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.